Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for September 23rd, 2019. I'm Katney. I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python that is designed to run on microcontrollers, which are tiny computers. We meet, this is our community meeting, and we meet every week, typically on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We meet on Discord. Everyone is encouraged to join us. And if you want to, you can check out Discord at adafru.it/Discord. And we are in the CircuitPython chat channel all week. But during this meeting, we are in the CircuitPython voice channel. This meeting is recorded. We record both audio and the Discord window, so we see the chat text as well. And so if you are not interested in your voice being recorded, please feel free to type out your updates into the chat channel, and I will read them off. We post this video on YouTube and sometimes on Diode Zone. And we also post it as a podcast. So if you are more of a podcast person, check us out there. And if you find that we are not on your favorite podcast service, please let us know, and we will try and get that taken care of. CircuitPython development is sponsored by Adafruit, so please support them by purchasing hardware at adafruit.com. So this meeting is held in 5 parts. I keep forgetting we keep adding things. First is community news, which is everything going on with Python on hardware in the community. Second is the state of CircuitPython and the libraries, which is a statistical overview of the project to sort of give us a feel for the health of the project. It's just numbers based and lets us know where everything is with CircuitPython. We talk about the core and the libraries separately there. Then next is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance for you to call someone out for doing something good. We do it in a round robin style where I will start, and then I will go down the list alphabetically, skipping over people who are lurking. And then looping back to the top and coming down the list, so everyone who wants to has a chance to talk. And go ahead and provide hug reports. The next section is status updates, which is the section where everybody takes a couple minutes to talk about what they've done in the last week and since the last meeting, and what they're going to do in the next week until the next meeting. And just take a few minutes, let us know what you're up to. It's also an opportunity for you to ask any quick questions and get tips and tricks from others on any issues you may be running into. And for any longer form discussion, questions or discussions that you think are going to take quite a bit longer, we have the In the Weeds section, which I see someone has already posted an In the Weeds question. That's excellent. If you have any In the Weeds discussion topics, please post them into the chat channel while we are doing the meeting, or add them to the notes doc, which I linked to a little bit ago in the CircuitPython channel. That way we're not waiting for people to come up with ideas at the end of the meeting, and we can just go straight through and sort out what everyone wants to talk about. And then that is it. So that is how this meeting will go. And with that, I will turn it over to Phil with community news.
Okay, thank you, Katney.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm losing my voice a little bit, folks, but it's for good reasons, and I'll get to that shortly. The first up, the latest version of iOS is out for phones, and we did a bunch of testing, so you can code and save and do things on your iPhone with CircuitPython, and that's pretty powerful. Towards the end of the month, when Apple updates iPads, you'll be able to do the same thing, and that is a really neat thing for schools that use iOS devices or anyone who uses iOS devices. You'll be able to essentially use a USB drive, which is CircuitPython, to edit and save code. The code editors probably need to get updated so they're aware of that storage, but we show how to copy the file and edit the file and bring it back over. And we're also working on another fun wireless thing. You can check that out in our newsletter and more. It's called Glider. More on that later. Next up, CircuitPython snakes its way to the FT23.2H. We now have CircuitPython Blinkus support, so you can control sensors, OLEDs, buttons, LEDs, and more via this cool little breakout we have, thanks to Carter, who took on this project. And if you wanted to write code once and have it control hardware anywhere, Mac, PC, Linux, and more, this is the way to do it. We have a video demo. It's really powerful, and more ahead on that. Next up, Hackspace Magazine's out, and there's some really great articles, especially from some of the folks in the community. Sophie has a really good one on motorized wings for costuming. And then Ben, the editor-in-chief, has send data with if then this that, control almost anything with Circuit Python. And Hackspace is free, but if you want to support a cool magazine, you could subscribe. Subscribers get a Circuit Playground Express. The PDF is free, and then I think they'll probably have easier ways in the future soon, depending on what location you're at, to get those. We're hanging out with the Magpie and Hackspace folks this week, so if there's anything I can post about that, I'll put it in either the newsletter or on our blog. Next up, this is like one of my favorite things here. The CircuitPython and Moo book is it was at an event in Tokyo. And they have shirts, they have a booth, they have everything. So I'm putting all these photos in our newsletter. This is super neat, and I want to get some of these shirts. We're going to try to stock the book right away, and maybe even stock some of these shirts. So if you're interested in this, I think it's more of a collector's item unless you can read and understand Japanese, but still it's super cool. And this is the iconography and the artist who did this. It's just like spot on for what we thought we'd like to see with CircuitPython and Moo resources. Next up, this was news to us. It's super cool. There's an introduction to CircuitPython class in Connecticut. If you're near Connecticut, it's a coding camp for kids, and they're teaching CircuitPython. So the reason why I'm losing my voice is we had a bunch of visitors. It was Maker Faire time in New York, but there was no Maker Faire, so some people still were around. So on Friday we had Salier. We're going to be posting up our interview with them. Really cool company. Goes through the history and some of the challenges they have and what the new stuff they're working on. And then on Saturday, some of the microbit folks were out, Raspberry Pi folks, Pimeroni folks, OKDo folks. And then yesterday was Max Holliday's visit, and Max is the person who's putting CircuitPython in space. And you've probably seen our coverage of some of the things that Max has been up to, but it's a hour-ish conversation, mostly him and Lady Ada talking about all the good reasons that you'd want to use Python for things in space. His work at Stanford, he was in an IoT competition. You can see that. And then the SAM32 board, which is in circuitpython.org/downloads. It looks like Stanford's using that a lot. And just hearing someone who's helping hundreds, thousands of kids get spun up and the reasons why Python is so successful in that environment was really neat. It's all the stuff that we were hoping that this would work out for. And
starting recording. All right. Thanks for joining us. This is the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for September 23rd. We're not going to start over. We had some technical difficulties. We are currently in the state of CircuitPython and the libraries. Hopefully we have the recording from the earlier part, so we may be in two pieces. Hopefully this is the second piece to what you're listening to. And Katney, are you restarting? What's your deal? Did she already disappear? Okay. I will add time codes on my end as well. So state of CircuitPython and the libraries. Overall, I guess this is the section where we take a statistical, objective view of the health of the project. And we can actually, because we have notes every week, we can actually go back and see over time how this kind of statistics point of view changes. So first we cover the project overall. This is both the like core C parts of CircuitPython and the libraries that are all Python stuff. So in the last week, we had 35 pull requests merged from 12 different authors, which is awesome. Some folks that I don't recognize in this list are Fiona Wim, Dark Music, Urish, I think has been there a couple times, but is there again. And the other folks are kind of regulars. So thank you to everybody who's been an author. We had 7 reviewers as well. So thank you to our 7 reviewers. Reviewing is a great way to get started if you're interested in contributing to CircuitPython. There are many open pull requests for different sensors or different boards. And the first thing that can be really helpful is just try the new code, and let us know in the comments on the pull request whether that works for you. That's a great place to start. The other thing we have is issues. We had 13 closed issues by 5 people and 10 opened by 7 people. So we are net down 3, which is great across the whole project. And again, we had 5 people involved in closing and 7 people involved in opening, which tends to be the case. More people open than close, but that's okay. Those numbers are going up, so that's good news. Okay, so that's, I guess I do summary of where we are overall. Overall in the projects, we've had our first few 5.0 alphas out, and they're going really well. And yeah, it's going really well. We'd love to hear more testing on it. We'll probably do another alpha. I've been working on doing kind of like CircuitPython file editing as a Bluetooth service, and that's going to change kind of a bit of the BLE workflow and things, or the APIs, but that should be really cool to get people started, and I'll go into that more details later. But lots of cool things are happening. 5.0 is kind of early, but it's going really well. So thank you to everyone working on 5.0. Okay, let's talk about the core. And Katney, let me know if you want to take back over. Either way is fine.
Yeah, I should be good to go at least to do the rest of the meeting once you're done with the core.
Okay, I'll do core. That's right. This is my section usually anyway. All right. On the core side, we had 14 pull requests merged from 8 different authors. New names on here are Dark Music, pull request to the core, so thank you to them. We had 4 reviewers, so thank you to all of our reviewers. We have 7 open pull requests, which is actually pretty low for us, which is great. Unfortunately, fortunately, but unfortunately, I think thanks you to Summersoft, we now designate how long pull requests have been open, and our longest open pull request is almost a year. It's 342 days. So yeah, we should take a look at that and make sure that it's not too bad. And then, yeah, take a look at the notes if you're curious about like how long each of these pull requests have been opened. Issues wise, we had 9 closed issues by 4 people and 2 opened by 2 people. So we're net down 7, which is awesome, for a total of 183 open issues. Linked in the notes to where you can see what all the issues are. We have 7 active milestones. 4x bugs fixes has no open issues, which is great. Nothing urgent. We had 6 issues that are not assigned a milestone, which is kind of like fluctuates with how well we are at grooming and designating issues. So we'll have to take a look at that. And then we're not kind of in a like very issue focused workflow right now. So we have a few open issues on 5x stuff, but nothing super major. Download stats by board. We have our stable release is 4.1.0, and we've had 9,231 downloads since the creation of the release. And then on the 5.0 Alpha 4 side, we've had 1,460 downloads, which is really cool. Kind of looks like every board's getting about 12 downloads, which may actually just be like web scraping. So I don't know. That's kind of weird. So who knows exactly how many people are using that. But if you're feeling brave and you haven't tried 5.0, I recommend it. It's not super unstable. Just got some extra goodies in it too. In the notes, we also have breakdown by the breakdown of UF2s by language. So take a look at that if you're curious how our language breakdown sorts out. And with that, I'll kick it back to Kattni.
Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the libraries, this week we had 21 pull requests merged by 7 authors. Fiona Wim is a name that I have not seen before, so thank you to our new contributor, and thank you to everyone else who has been contributing. And we have 6 reviewers, so thank you to everyone who's been reviewing as well. We currently have 38 open pull requests, and again, thank you to Summersoft for adding the number of days that things are open. The core has us beat, but we are also looking at well over 250 days on a few. So we definitely need to take a look at that and see what's going on with it. We also have some new PRs. So things that you are, if you're interested in contributing, check out the pull requests on the libraries. They're a great way to start. You can, even if you don't know how to test it, you can still take a look at it and see if it looks right to you, and just make a note that says you didn't test it and it looks right to you. Because that can even be helpful to us as well. And if you want to test it and you don't know how, we do have a guide on using Git and GitHub, and we are always available to help you do that. This is something we would love to have more people doing, and we are perfectly happy to put in the effort to teach you how to do it. So definitely take a look at that, or contact us, etc., if you want to get involved. Issues-wise, we had 4 issues closed by 3 people and 8 opened by 5 people, for a total of 148 open issues on the libraries across all of the repos. And for new libraries, we have 1 this week, which is the ATECC. And updated libraries, I'm not going to count even, because we had a bunch. So I think this actually came out of the fact that I went through and did a sweep on libraries that had commits but no releases, and released a lot of libraries last week. So all of the ones that I touched got updated, but I also know that there's a lot of other stuff that other people have added as well. So thank you to everyone who's been contributing to the libraries. And that is the state of CircuitPython and the libraries. Next up is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance for you to call someone out for doing something good. Like I said, it's done in a round robin style, where I will start and then we will go down the list alphabetically, skipping over people who are lurking. If you, even if you are lurking, if you have Hug Reports and you want me to read them off, please put them in the notes. And if you're going to be missing the meeting, you can add your notes anytime after we post the link to the notes document, and we'll read them off as we go. And there's a few people who have done that. So I will read them off where they would fit in the list alphabetically. And that is how Hug Reports will work. So I will get started. First, I want to give a hug to Summersoft for Adabot and CircuitPython.org work. We're still working on updating the CircuitPython.org/libraries/contributing page, and it's been a lot of steps to get that going. And I really appreciate all the work Summersoft is putting in. Same to Justin Cooper for all the updates and PR reviews on the work that Summersoft has been doing that I've been helping with. Thanks to Roy for helping me inventory my hardware, and in doing so, finding some lib errors I made a long time ago and then submitting the fixes. Big hug report to community moderators on Discord for being amazing, for stepping in where needed, and continuing to keep our community a wonderful place to be. We don't run into a lot of issues, but when we do, there's always quick response and very well-formulated responses, and things are handled very well. And I really appreciate being able to leave for a weekend and come back and having everything be great. So thank you for that. And a group hug to the whole community. Thanks for being a fantastic group of people. And so we have a lurker. And so next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay. I just wanted to give a hug report to you, Kattni, for reviewing a bunch of PRs that I put out right away. I guess it's a group hug to everyone.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike is lurking, and so next up is Antol.
Folks, I hope you can hear me.
I can.
Fantastic. Computers that actually work. Now, there's a thing. So I have 3 hug reports. The first one for Make Melissa for the wonderful write-up of the Circuit tool that I authored. Some really great suggestions and bug reports. Tammy makes things as well for volunteering to help, not reinvent the wheel. Thank you very much. That was done on the Discord channel. I'm looking forward to working with you. And Phil and Limor for some clarity when it comes to handling modules that are bytecode compiled already rather than just plain Python. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is Sedacious.
Howdy. So I wanted to send a shout/hug to JP John Park for inspiring me, giving me a chance to play around with the TLV493D sensor that Kattni made to just really get a feel for like how it senses the magnetic fields and like what it feels like to actually work with it, and tie that into servos to make it really kind of tactile and really fun. It was a fun little project working on that with him. And then also big props to Cater Carter, the man of many names, for adding support to Blinka for the FT232H, which, if you don't know, it's basically a USB to GPIO breakout made by FTDI, I think. And basically, what he's done, is super cool. I'm going to steal the show here. He has made it so that you can use CircuitPython with your computer. It's really cool. It's going to change a lot of stuff. I think we're going to see a lot of more stuff coming out in this kind of direction. But like I can plug sensors into my computer and it just works. It's amazing. Anyways, good job, Carter. That's really cool. Next up to Scott Tanut for making a lot of cool progress on the initial kind of prototype of Glider, the BLE CircuitPython editor thing. That's going to be really cool to see how that goes. That's it for me.
Thanks. All right, so I have some notes in the doc. So Summersoft, who's not in the meeting, has a hug report for Kattni and JW Cooper for PR reviews and a group hug. And Tammy Makes Things, who won't be able to make the chat this week because of a work conflict, gives a hug to the whole community for being awesome, and to Antol for the Circuit tool, which I'm looking forward to contributing to instead of having to reinvent the wheel. And next up is Scott.
Hello. Okay, first and foremost, thank you to Lady Ada. She's been doing, well, she always does, but continued to do a bunch of reviews for folks this week. Really appreciate that. Shout out to Eric Trout, who works at Microsoft and created Pyrite. I think I mentioned it last week, but it's a TypeScript library that does both Python source code parsing and analysis, static type analysis, which is super cool. And I got it running on phones in React Native last week. So a huge boost of things I don't have to do. So I'm really excited about that. Will be some really cool editing things coming down the pike. Thank you to Phil and Limor for the glider name. I had called it Ka and wasn't really liking it, and they came up with glider after the flying snakes. So we're going to have some cool logos and animations for sending files back and forth. So looking forward to that. Shout out to Anecdata and Doc Malo for their continued work on the ESP32 Spy library and adding more stuff there. Thank you to Urish for SSD 1608 fix, which is an e-ink IC, just a not bit packing correctly sort of thing that they fixed. So really appreciate that. Thank you to Kattni and Roy for the README fixes. I merged those in last night. They found those during inventory. That's cool. And then lastly, I just saw this, but it's really cool. Summersoft for the continued work on Adabot and getting the how long have these PRs been open statistics right in front of our face so that we can't ignore it anymore. So really appreciate that. Thank you to Summersoft for it.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Scott. Next up is TG Techie.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I just wanted to give a group hug to the community as always for being awesome and working on an awesome project. And a thank you to Cascades, who sent me a little screen that works with CircuitPython, so I can try it out before using it in my project.
Excellent. All right. Anecdata is lurking, so next up is Brent.
Hello, a hug report to Anecdata, who is lurking for ESP32 SPI work for specifically for the analog I/O work. It's going to be great to use that to read battery levels of sensors and hopefully other things that will kind of offload the processing from the main microcontroller. And then for Scott, for CircuitPython at work, I got an iPad like this weekend for reading a lot of papers, and it's going to be fun to CircuitPython on the go.
All right. Thank you. Next up is Carter.
Yeah, mic check.
You are sounding good.
Cool, excellent. No chipmunks. Yeah, group hug to Sedacious and Lady Ada for actually testing the FT232 HPR on Mac and Windows. I'm Linux only, so they were able to test it on those other two platforms. Sedacious for Mac, and I think Lady Ada had the least fun one of Windows, but they both tested it and got it working so we could get that out. So thanks for that. That's all I got.
All right. Excellent. Grover is lurking, so next up is Dan.
Hello there. So we were on vacation from the previous Wednesday through this last Thursday, so I wasn't around last week and haven't done a lot of work since then. But I'd really like to thank Scott for showing us around. We were in Seattle and for part of this vacation, and Scott showed us around his neighborhood, and we went out to eat. Saw lox, saw a seabird catch a fish out of the water and drag it away in midair, which was quite spectacular. That was a great time. And then since then, Scott's been working on the Glider editor app, which he'll tell you about more later, and some BLE changes needed to make it work. And that stuff really looks great. He's having a great time doing that, and it's really obvious. And I'll repeat, the FT232H Blinka implementation, thanks to Carter and Maker Melissa for that. Was planning to do something similar in Arduino, something we might call US Blinka, so that you don't need the specialized hardware, but this is a great project for doing the same thing with an existing piece of hardware already. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Next up is Dave Brachetti.
Hello, everybody. Thanks to the 12 people who added their info to the CircuitPython community members directory. It's really interesting to learn more about the very interesting people who are here.
All right. Thanks. Next up is Deshipu.
Okay, so I would like to thank Christian Walter, who's really working a lot on the Pew devices. He has written a whole new tutorial and also translated a lot of the documentation into German. And he basically ran the workshops on the Flick the World festival, and he's going to do some hacking on things, on Pews on the upcoming meetup as well. So really, really great work on his side. Oh, and he has made his own version of the Pew device, which is a shield for the Pico, tiny Pico device, the ESP32. So that's also super cool. And the second person I would like to thank is James Wooton, who goes on Twitter as Quantum Dream. he's a professor at IBM who's working with quantum computers, and he's using Pupius to teach about quantum computing concepts on for the students. He has ported part of the Qiskit library, a library that IBM uses for quantum computing, to Pupiu, a very small one, a very small part of it that only handles 2 qubits at a time because of the limitations of the hardware. And we've been using it at a hackathon, and it's great fun. So that's it.
All right, excellent. Don K is working, so next up is highereffect.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As usual, to Lady Ada and Scott for their quick work on helping my SAM32 PRs go through. And then an extra thank you to Jeff Appler this week for tracking down a find bug that I'd been trying to figure out what the heck was causing it. Thank you.
All right. So Jason P is lurking, but has put Hug Report in the notes. And that is thank you to Scott for the deep dive into the display IO weeds last week. Next up is Jerry.
Hi, it's a group hug to everybody, and special thanks to Scott, Tanut, and all the moderators who joined in to rescue me in what turned out to be a particularly difficult moderator issue. Appreciated the support.
All right. Excellent. So that is Hug Reports. Next up is status updates. Status updates is a chance for everyone to discuss what it is that they have been up to over the last week and what it is they will be doing over the next week. It's an opportunity for all of us to sync up not only with each other within the project, but with the community to know what everyone is up to. So take a couple minutes, talk about what you're doing or what you have been doing. It doesn't have to be CircuitPython related. We'd love to know whatever you're working on. I will start. We will go in around robin, just like Hug Reports. There are a few notes in the document for people who are missing the meeting. I will read those off as we go. So with that, I will get started. Last week, completed the Hollowing M4 guide and everything that goes with that, including the most complicated fritzing I've ever done. But that looks good and is out. Started fixing up some libraries that were created pre-cookie cutter that don't have some information that CircUp, the CircuitPython updater tool, requires. So I started going through those to make sure that all the libraries work with that. I worked through some CircuitPython.org updates with Summersoft and Justin. We're still trying to sort out getting the /library/contributing page updated daily so that it is a better resource. And it's taking extra steps because we're learning as we go. So we're still working through that. I went through all of my breakouts this weekend to work up a second set of them and found some minor bugs in a few libraries that I introduced by using the same setup.py for multiple libs and apparently not updating the GitHub URL from the original setup.py that I used. Those issues have been fixed and merged. So that was taken care of after we found the issues. And various other things I'm sure I'm forgetting. This week, today is Library Monday. So I'll be fixing up the libs to work with CircUp. The Monster Mask guide that went up doesn't have a downloads page, so we need to do that and need to do a fritzing object for it, so we'll be doing that. Then next is starting the Circuit Playground Bluetooth examples. We're going to do a color picker, Bluetooth keyboard, and plotting temperature and light levels to the Bluefruit app. 3 separate examples and a guide page for each. Then after that, I'm doing a guide for our new Stemma speaker that you can just plug into a board or, for example, audio or alligator clip it to the Circuit Playground Express and have an external speaker with very little effort and no soldering involved, and everything just works. So we're going to do a quick guide for that. I'm going to be helping Melissa with a guide on the new TFT gizmo. Continuing to sort out CircuitPython.org, and I am out Friday because I am moving. So it's going to be a short week for me, a lot to do, but if anybody needs anything, still feel free to ping me, and we can deal with whatever we got to do as we go. And that is my status update. So next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay, so last week I finished the guide. I updated some boards on CircuitPython.org. I updated the color IO color display IO color TFT display IO examples and all associated learn guides. I worked on updating the SSD 1306 display IO example and some learn guide pages, and I fixed a couple of OLED CircuitPython learn guide Halloween M4 examples that were originally only written for the M0. And I added some missing pin aliases to the CircuitPython board definition for the Halloween M4. Next week, I'm going to continue working on the FD 1306 OLED Learn Guide pages. I'm going to work with you, Kattni, on the TFT Gizmo guide. And if time permits, I'll add some more boards to Blink.
Sounds good. All right, Mike's lurking. So next up is Antol.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Okay, so Adafruit related things today. I did some work on the Circuit tool. So it now works with .mpy based modules. So this is the bytecode rather than regular Python in those modules. That works fine. There's a whole bunch of unit tests. It works on my Linux laptop, so it works for me. I need to check it on my shonky Windows laptop and borrow my wife's MacBook to check it's working on OS 10. I'd love feedback if people want to take it for a drive and see what happens. That'd be good. Unit tests and everything. I fixed Melissa, your problem about the hidden files and directories, subdirectories being processed. So that's now fixed. And Circuit will also check what version of CircuitPython you've got on the board, and if there's a newer version, it'll suggest that you update it. I've put the pull request information for all that I've just mentioned. Excuse me. In the notes, feedback welcome. At all other times, you said you want to know what else I've been doing. So code grades and new work. Working on PiperCard with a whole bunch of kids in the evening, on Friday evening. And they're having a lot of fun. They wrote some really cool adventure games for me with PiperCard. I've been writing some personal blog posts, and for the rest of this week is Pi Week. So I'm going to be creating a Myst-inspired adventure game using PiperCard.
Nicholas, can you link to your blog as well so we can follow you?
Hi, you helped.
Wanted to know whether you could link to your blog as well. All right. Next up is Sedacious.
Hey, so I actually also wanted to mention, Nick, I heard you mention that you've written a bunch of unit tests for your CircUp tool. Unit tests are a very useful way of testing code. It can be a very structured way of doing it and add a lot of things to a development workflow that I think the community would benefit from knowing more about. So if I could ask you to maybe share what you've done in some way, that would be super awesome. I'm a unit test junkie, except I haven't written them in a long time. So anyways, so what have I been doing? I've been doing things. I tested Carter's FT232H Blinka PR. Again, super cool. I don't know. I'm just crazy about this. I was able to use it to start tacking on a driver without having to plug in a CircuitPython board, which is really pretty cool. So I'm really looking forward to see where that goes. Let's see, other words. Other words, is that a word? I guess it is now. I did a bunch of work on the MPU 6050 Arduino driver. That's coming along. It's nearly done, so I'm going to get started on the CircuitPython driver this week as well. I also, over the weekend, was able to hack together a kind of initial CircuitPython driver for the APDS 9500 gesture sensor. It's a gesture and proximity sensor. It's got like baked in capability of detecting, I think, 9 different gesture types. It's all like in the hardware. You have to do some tuning, but it's a really cool sensor. But it also is like, there's like over 100 registers. It's pretty crazy. So I was able to throw a script together that somewhat automatedly ported a Arduino driver over to CircuitPython by reading out a bunch of register construction and what arguments were being passed to them, and kind of parse it and chop it up into a bunch of register statements and assignments. And so that did like the vast majority of the work for me. And then I was able to just do some minor plumbing here and there to make it work. And it did work. It was great. It was able to detect gestures. Now I actually have to make it be a real library, not just like a pile of statements. So that was fun. It was really cool. And I'm hoping to do more kind of quasi automation stuff like that in the future. So what else did I do? That's basically it. I've also been working on my Halloween costume. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm like one of those people that's always wanted to like do this amazing Halloween costume and never actually did it. So I'm actually trying to do it this year. And I realized that I have to instate some project management. So I'm going to try and set some deadlines for myself. Have a R&D kind of prototyping stage, and another stage of a couple weeks of actually building the thing. And then if I'm smart and I don't get behind schedule, I'll leave a little bit of time at the end to actually like fix all the bugs and make it actually work before Halloween. So yeah, that's been on my mind a lot. I've got a bunch of stuff to play around with that. Let's see, what else am I doing this week? So more hacking on the APDS 9500 driver. Gonna work on the MPU 6050 driver as well. I am probably going to be spinning up some new boards in Eagle. I've got a couple things I've been working on or had in the back of my mind to do, and there's also, I've got a pile of data sheets and sensors waiting to be made into things, so I'll be doing some of that. And I think that's it for me.
Excellent. So I have some notes in the document from people who are not in the meeting. So Summersoft says last week, with AdaBot, finished days open metrics, standard library, label library infrastructure check. With CircuitPython.org, worked on the first iteration of moving the libraries.json to AWS, currently failing due to target path woes. With CircuitPython build tools, I got the community bundle building 98% correct by using package prefix name. The 2% incorrect is an included docs/conf.py. Ran through some models exercises of using pathlib instead of os.walk to gather package files. So far, using pathlib looks like it would be much cleaner and less hacky. I wrote the current os.walk code, and even I struggle to read it at times. This week, fixing libraries.json AWS target path issue, CircuitPython build tools, try next idea for community bundle, allow a list of package prefix name instead of just one string, further pathlib research, and core docs module support matrix, work on handling the dependent by default modules, e.g. audio core and audio mixer, are enabled by the value of audio I/O. Next up, Tammy makes things. Says still wrapping up my move, so not much progress this week on stuff, but I have my home office and all my computers and monitors set up, so that's a win. Working on CircuitPython presentation and demo for Desert Pi user group, which will happen either this week or after October, depending on progress. And looking at the code for Antol's Circup tool and have a few ideas for enhancements. And next up is Scott.
Hello. I think it was on Wednesday for Show and Tell. I did the very first demo of the Glider app. but it was very fragile. I had to restart everything and run it once, and it wouldn't happen. Like wouldn't be happy after that. But I got the CircuitPython supervisor Bluetooth stuff, basically recognizing disconnects and re-advertising after that happened. So that's checked in there now. That's in a branch that's not in mainline yet. I've got to add this week the ability to write a command back that says like mutate the file in this way and then restart your code.py. So I'm planning on that. But the nice thing about getting the re-advertising going is that I can iterate on the app side, the mobile app side, without having to worry about like the CircuitPython device. So it's been really nice actually. I just like plug in my Feather NRF and just it has this like blinky back and forth between two colors, and it just runs, and I can connect to it, and I can load the file, and I can mess around with all the app stuff that I'm doing based on that. So one thing I need to do that I haven't done yet is like stubbing out the BLE side so that you can prototype without actually connecting to a real device, but it's been quite reliable. So that's been really, really cool and a good proof of concept there. So I'll probably keep doing that at least in the short term. For those of you who kind of missed the memo, it's pretty early, but I'm working on a React Native based app for mobile phones or mobile devices, so tablets included. React Native is really cool because it runs JavaScript on the device itself, and then under the hood of the JavaScript, it interacts with all of the native phone stuff. So it's been really great to get going. I've showed it on the iPad. On Friday, I got an Android phone, the Pixel 3a, and I was working on Friday night to get that going, and did get pretty far. There's some weird text input sizing issues that kind of breaks the illusion that it's just like a text editor. So I'm going to poke around that at that today. But basically, I use Pyrite, which does parsing analysis, to split like your code.py into lots of individual pieces. So if there's like a number, say you have like time.sleep and there's a number inside of it, you tap the number, you'll get just like a numeric keyboard. You won't get like a full keyboard because we know it's a number and we know you're editing a number. So really happy with how that interaction feels at this point. So this week, my goal is to kind of like finish the loop where I'm reading files and now I can edit them. Now I need to actually be able to write those edits back to the device and see it change. So with my blinky between two colors, for example, I need to be able to edit that number and see that the tempo changes of flicking back and forth between colors. So that's one of my main goals, is to close that loop. And then the other goal is to make that very limited, very like, don't wander too far off the main path, otherwise you'll go into a swamp that will not be pleasant. But getting the workflow of getting the very early versions of Glider out to folks. So if you're in this meeting and you're curious to see what that is and maybe contribute, it is public. It's Adafruit, github.com/Adafruit/Glider. If you want to get all of the toolchain stuff going, I'm happy to help you get it going. It's very early, but should be doable. So if you're a JavaScript person, now's the time. Could use your help. And yeah, so reach out to me if you're interested in that. It's very, very limited, and there's a lot of things to handle. Like I'm taking a parse tree and I'm reproducing like what the code looks like based on the parse tree. So there's a lot of like, I don't handle handle comments right now. So like that's one of the first things I'll take a look at. So there's lots of work there, but my goal has been to like incorporate the big pieces to make sure that they all will fit together and that they're all doable. So making lots of progress there, which is awesome. The other thing I got going on is this week is PyCascade's call for presentations or proposals is closed on Monday next week, October 1st. So I have a few presentation ideas I want to pitch there, so I've got to write those up and submit those to the PyCascades. And then I also want to pitch basically the same things for PyCon. So I plan on kind of reusing that work that I'll do this week for that. And then I also heard from SuperCon and got accepted to speak there about CircuitPython and the Game Boy. So expect to see maybe in later October, see a little bit more progress made on the Game Boy in prep for SuperCon in November. So that's it for me.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Anecdate is lurking. So next up is, oh, I'm sorry. Next up is TG Techie.
Wow, Scott, that's really awesome and really you're productive. And so this week I've actually started to sit down and learn C because I skipped a couple classes in an embedded class in my college, working with Atmel chips, and we're working directly in so that's been like you can start to see how abstractions that are made in Python, not all of them, but just some of them, are translated into circuit like the hardware that we're playing with by playing around with the registers. And I'm sorry, is this better? I've also been working on my how do I put this ever-present project of a GUI, and this time I re-implemented it so that it's platform agnostic, so it can work with the display.io procedural writing to an SPI display, or it can work on top of Pythonista for a lap for an iPad, or on top of Pygame for laptops. And I've got it working on a PyPortal, just some basics, and I'll post a video of that. And I'll be putting it up on GitHub soon under a open source license, of course. And yeah.
Excellent. All right. Now we are up to Anecdata lurking. And next up is Brent.
Hello. Last week I wrapped up the ATEC 608 breakout work for CircuitPython. If you have one of these chips, you can generate your certificate signing request, or you can also perform other neat cryptographic utilities. There actually is a footprint of it on most of the boards that we ship, the ITSE breakout, the Airlift Featherwing, and the Airlift Shield. So if you purchase the chip directly from DigiKey, you should be able to solder it right on and start playing with it. We don't stock the chip only, I think, right now. And I've been working on non-CircuitPython projects since then. And that's it.
All right. Thanks, Brent. Next up is Carter.
Yeah, just a guide for the FT232H stuff. Did let everyone know how to go through the painful setup. And then once you're set up, you're good to go.
All right. Excellent. C. Grover is lurking. So next up is Dan.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I was on vacation for a while, so I don't have a lot to report of progress since then, but I'm going back to working on BLE bonding, and also over the weekend I was working on trying to get the XAC, the Xbox Adaptive Controller, working with a Circuit Playground as a simulated gamepad joystick thing, and it's not working for confusing reasons. It may or may not have to do with our switching to tiny USB in CircuitPython 4. So we need to debug that further. Okay, that's it.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Next up is Dave Ricchetti.
Hello again. First off, can you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is called tilting arpeggios. This is an example CircuitPython CPX program. And I'm tilting it, so it's using the accelerometer to find which part of the arpeggio to play. And then I can change keys with the A button. So now it's going to go up a fourth. And it has a couple different types of arpeggios it'll play. It'll do this dominant chord that it's doing now, and it'll also do blues arpeggios. So I've got a link if folks are interested. And I have a question about it. I wonder if I can detect a button press while a tone is playing. I suspect the answer is no. I couldn't find anything about threading. Maybe someone has a quick suggestion.
Do we have start tone? Or is that only start file?
No, we have start tone and stop tone.
Perfect. That's probably exactly what I need. Thank you.
Couldn't remember.
Yep, start tone, stop tone. Playtone actually uses them. So excellent. All right, next up is Deshipu.
Okay, so basically just more work on the Pew M4. I have a prototype number 6 now, where I'm experimenting with laser cutting the button caps for all the buttons. I have a photo here. Yeah, so basically the idea is to have the D-pad and the fire buttons cut out of the same acrylic material that the case is cut off of. So then it's like one part for everything. I still have some problems with it. It's basically too high, so I will have to try with a different tactile switches. But I like that direction, so I'm pretty happy with how it goes. And next prototype probably will be much better.
All right, looks amazing. Next up, Don K is working. Next up is highereffect.
So this past week I was just working on module support for the STM32. So I'm not sure if we had wrapped up audio, analog I/O last week, but we have that done, as well as support that has full pin selection, so you can use XRC on the pair of pins you'd like. And also introduced some minor additions for other library-related modules, so that you can use more of the traditional CircuitPython libraries on STM32 screens or anything else that's using XRC. So we've got a little bit more support there if you're interested in checking it out after this STM32 board. I'll be working on getting some more boards added to the STM32 library, or STM32 to support the F405, the F407, and anything else I can find that's using the F11 and F12. And progress on that, but I'm running into some issues that might be conflicts just between Python, like the setup of boards and the way that we set up our boards. So we'll see how that goes, but hopefully we'll have many more boards for people to play with by the end of the week.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up is Jerry.
Hello. Deep in the North Maine woods, off grid, and having a great time seeing some early fall foliage. So it was a nice break. And so really nothing special to report from last week, and plans for this week are just to get my head together and try and focus on a few things rather than all the different toys I have to play with.
Understood. All right, thanks, Jerry. And that is status updates. Next up is In the Weeds. In the Weeds is an opportunity to have more long form discussions, questions that you may have that didn't really make sense in status updates, topics you want to discuss. If you come up with any topics, please add them to the notes or post them in the CircuitPython chat channel so we can keep moving along and not wait for concepts to come up. So we already have one added. So with that, I will hand it over to highereffect to talk about his topic.
Yeah, so this may or may not be something that is solvable here, but I was just wondering if anybody with MicroPython might know anything about an STM32 feature called core coupled RAM. so far, every board that I have that supports core coupled RAM is booting into core coupled RAM and not RAM, no matter what my linker says. And I was just wondering what might be up with that. If anybody knows, and if nobody knows, then.
So is it getting out of the bootloader?
I erased all the flash. So is the bootloader like? I'm a little behind on my bootloader tech here. So it's like
I believe the STM chips have ROM bootloaders, I believe.
Bootloaders. Okay.
Yeah, so you won't be able to erase their the one they ship with, which is one of the main reasons I think people pick them is because you basically can't brick it because you can't erase their bootloader.
Okay. So would this be? So wait, is this the? This isn't the STM. It's because this doesn't normally happen to me on other on when I'm normally using an STM32. This is just for the MicroPython boards that I'm encountering it. And I'm actually using the same linker file. Python does, or at least I'm using the same setting.
Right.
So,
but is it ever getting to your code?
So I guess I won't be the culprit in terms of.
I know on the STM the first thing it goes into is the reset handler. If you can set a breakpoint in the reset handler, then you could figure out if it's actually getting to you at all.
I know from my debugger that I'm in the reset handler, and then if I start the program, and I immediately move to the core coupled RAM. A different starting location, and I can view the memory there, and I see that there's a bunch of stuff in the core coupled RAM despite their instructions to go there. Just not sure, I'm just not sure what other files I've got. I've got the linker file. I've got my startup file. So where else one would specify to move to a new memory location?
Yeah, that seems places? Weird. And you're gauging your CC RAM by the backtrace that you're getting from the.
I can see my, GDB just tells me where in memory I am, right? So I can see that I'm not sure how to say this, say big hex numbers, but the CC RAM has a different location in memory than the RAM.
Right.
1 and 7 zeros, 2 and 7 zeros. And I can see that that's where I'm located, is at the upper edge of the CC RAM.
Right.
And then when I run a memory, kind of a view memory, I can see that there's a bunch of stuff in there that it's trying to iterate through.
But it doesn't work because it might be that it's just a cache, and it's okay that your program counter is actually in CC RAM.
Normally, if you want to use the CC RAM,
it's transparent.
Using it, where you go into the linker file and you define it, and you define all the different points for it, and then you move stuff there, and there's a process for putting stuff in CC RAM that I just haven't. And so without having done it, I'm not really sure why it's there anyway. I guess. I don't know. I was hoping that this would be some easy thing that was oh yes, that always happens to me with MicroPython, but esoteric and need more research.
So have you looked at the linker scripts for MicroPython and compared them?
Yeah. I mean, mine's almost identical to the one that MicroPython uses.
And this does this not happen on the 412, but it does happen on the 407?
So the 405 and 407s are have CC RAM. 12 and the F11 411s do not. None of the kind of what
Okay,
they call
so
the starter
I
boards. None of those have that.
I just looked in the MicroPython issues and PRs, and CCRAM is never mentioned. And I found like one interesting thing, which is sort of the opposite of what you're talking about, which is in the MicroPython forum, and I posted that in the channel. But you could look at that, but I'm not sure that it would tell you anything. But
Right.
I
So
don't
why
know
is
anything else
CCRAM not? Yeah. So this is what I would expect, where it's like most of the time people just don't use the CCRAM at all. It's just this extra thing that you can use for caching if you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, originally I didn't even have it defined. Like it wasn't even in my linker table, but yet it is still moving there.
So I mean, I think if you're really stuck, you might just ask in the MicroPython forum that you may or may not get any hints from the people there. But since those people use the PyBoard all the time,
yeah, you could. I would probably step from the reset handler as well.
Yeah.
I tried stepping from the reset handle. It doesn't like it when I do that. Maybe that's just my GDB foo isn't where it needs to be.
One other trick is it's an Cortex M4, right?
It is a Cortex M4.
The other trick that I play if I want to just know where it gets is you can do an inline breakpoint in the code and like basically, binary search to figure out where you're ending up. Because even though like you haven't set the breakpoint from GDB, it'll still trap and stop. So if you just like add that anywhere in your code, it's actually really handy for like doing conditional breakpoints within just the code. You just say like if these things are true, then break. It's really nice.
Interesting. I'll give that a shot because I did notice that there was at one point, like normally what happens if my code but is not quite there is that USB will connect and then it'll make my Bluetooth headphone screw up. So that's usually a message when my music starts to get all choppy. That's a message that I'm on the way. And that actually did happen. So I'm wondering, it may be trying to actually load the whole program, the CCRAM, and then it's actually executing out of there. But
I would kind of expect like you just have the wrong value somewhere and you're jumping to the wrong place.
Yeah, that's certainly what it seems like. I'm very confused as to how it got there because it's like I don't even talk about this.
Right. And then the other thing for USB that I do is like I get a USB cable with a switch on the data lines. So if you do end up broken and your music starts chopping, like that happens to me too. Like I'll turn the data lines off and basically the board is still powered, but it's disconnected for the USB bus.
Right.
Really
or I can just use my phone. That's normally what I switch to when I'm doing USB.
Well, I have problems if it's like my keyboard and mouse stop working.
Oh yeah, that's true. I haven't had that come up, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, let me know if you don't figure it out today, and I can take a look tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
All right. Excellent. So no more in the weeds topics, so I think it is time to wrap up. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for September 23rd, 2019. We're here every week. You can check out the video for this on YouTube, most of it anyway. And the notes document is available with timestamps that will be available, so you can scan through that and just go to the spots that you would rather watch if you don't want to sit through the whole thing. And check it out on podcasts as well. So this has been the CircuitPython Weekly. Thanks to everyone who showed up, and we will see you again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bunch.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.